Late for work! Coming through!
Looking good, Spidey!
Hello, New York! Haha! New suit, same old me.
When I get a platinum trophy in a video game, it usually means it's a great game. Marvel's Spider-Man is one of those, and I'm not proud to admit I didn't get Spider-Man back in 2018 when it first came out. Literally, I had plans to get it, but when the time came, I just completely forgot about it because of all the hype around Red Dead 2. In 2021, I saw that Spider-Man was on special on the PlayStation Market for $22, and along with the base game was 3 story DLCs. Once I saw that deal, I couldn't let the deal slip. Man, oh man, I had fun with Marvel Spider-Man. Honestly, too much fun to the point where I procrastinated on when to get off. I purchased the game on Friday and spent all of Friday to Sunday straight with very little breaks. That's how addictive the game truly is. Insomniac Games have delivered a hell of a game that I recommend to everyone. Now that it's 2024 and I'm playing Spider-Man 2, I think it's time I finally review Spider-Man 2018. I should get it out there, while I'm a fan of superhero movies, and even though my favourite hero is Iron Man, but not far behind is Spider-Man, someone who always entertains me as a character. As for superhero games, I wouldn't exactly call myself a fan because I've only played a few games, which were the Spider-Man games on the PS2. So with that out of the way, I think it's time we web sling into this review. Spider-Man right away throws you into the streets of New York and you're taught the fundamentals of web slinging, something a Spider-Man game needs to nail. Ladies and gentlemen, the word I would use to describe the web slinging is phenomenal. Swinging from building to building was something that never got old, but when you're first starting out with the basics, it does take a while to master. I made the mistake of bumping into buildings, losing speed and momentum, but as you progress through the main story, you'll increase your web slinging speed. And once you're used to the web slinging mechanics, it becomes easy and you will have a blast from beginning to end. After you're shown the web swinging tutorial, you're thrown right into combat and it instantly feels great. And like the web traversal, there is a learning curve you need to get used to. The combat is addicting and super easy to master, and one thing is for certain, this game took inspiration from the Batman Arkham games from the videos I've seen. No matter how you approach combat, through hand-to-hand combat, the suit abilities, or Peter's web gadgets, you're going to fall in love because of how simple it is to get used to. Continuing a 100 hit combo is hard, but within itself is a fun little challenge, especially when using Peter's Spider-Man senses to predict enemy attacks. But the best thing about the combat is, it never felt repetitive to the point where I felt like I was doing unnecessary chores. A common symptom that I typically see with other open world games these days. While the combat mechanics were exceptional, they are not perfect. In a game about Spider-Man, there is a minuscule issue with dodging. You can still get hit even if you've timed the dodge correctly. This happens rarely, but sometimes when you successfully dodge an attack, Spider-Man will lose health even though you know nothing hit you, and you could visibly see the gap between contact. Thank God this happened minimally, but every now and then you'll die to attacks that never hit you. Related to this, right before an enemy would attack you, I noticed whoever was attempting to hit you would unrealistically slide toward you without actually moving. Whether an occasional weird animation, I did encounter this during combat. Despite this irritating issue, it's not a huge problem and the combat is still fun. While the combat in this game is superb, one of the few areas in which it feels generic or below par is the enemies you encounter. To be clear, my problem isn't with the different groups. To be specific, my problem is with how many enemies Insomniac Games place in an area in an effort to make it a challenge for Spider-Man. I love the whole challenge aspect, but design is the root of the issue. In a couple random encounters, I had to go up against a bit too much enemies stacked into areas, especially snipers with their laser sights aimed at you, and occasionally, they sometimes have too many numbers for Peter Parker to dodge. It's not game breaking, and it only happens in small amounts of missions and random encounters. Since we live in the era of modern AAA gaming, even Spider-Man unfortunately is no stranger to bugs and glitches. While doing my research on this topic, I found that more than a few people encountered problems on the game's release. What was reported the most? Corrupted save files and game crashes. While these didn't happen to me, I did run into annoying glitches. In a demon outpost, one of the last remaining enemies got stuck in a wall, preventing me from capturing the outpost. Luckily, it only happened once in my 3 playthroughs of the game. Every now and then while roaming New York, I would fall under the map or glitch through buildings. Thank God the issue only happened to me on a couple of occasions. One bug didn't allow me to take out my camera in a side mission. Despite these being small, I could not help but feel this game needed a bit more polish and it should have been delayed maybe a month, but I'll give Insomniac credit for getting on top of the issues. I would be stupid not to mention the beautiful open world that Insomniac have created. After all, we are in New York, stopping crime as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And if you're an explorer like me, you gotta see all the attractions of New York. Climbing to the top of the Empire State Building, you'll be greeted with one of the most stunning views of the whole city. Obviously you've got the landmarks of New York, but what makes this world believable is the people interacting and the traffic. On 4K graphics, this game is a visual wonder. When you climb the biggest buildings, the draw distance is impressive. My only complaint in this regard is, this game falls for a trap that I see all too often with so many open world games. For example, it follows an outdated system that even Ubisoft stopped using it. You've got your typical towers that let you see parts of the map, and you've got enemy outposts that you've probably seen 1,000 times. You've got collectibles that actually have a reason to be in the game, but the act of getting them felt like a chore, which sucks because the collectibles actually unlock dialogue with Spider-Man. Gripes aside, even I can't deny Insomniac crafted a beautiful New York. Surprisingly, one aspect that disappointed me was the orchestral score. Don't get me wrong, the music is great, but there's not enough, and after a while, you'll hear the same heroic theme more than once. Does it make it repetitive? No, but it does cheapen some scenarios. Overall, what the OST needed was a few more remixes and it would have been a good soundtrack. Despite the lack of music for the game, John Paesano crafted a good soundtrack, but it could have been better. Next to the soundtrack is another disappointing aspect of this game, and it was surprisingly the side content. Side missions didn't feel engaging to play because of how uninteresting they were. Overall, they just felt like filler content, a decision that I see some AAA studios do to extend playtime, and that's another feature that I don't like in open world games. That's not to say all the side missions were terrible, there are some that I enjoyed playing through. One of the side missions I really liked and had reasons to be there were the Oscorp research stations that Harry wanted Peter to help with. They at least fill in the void for the lackluster side content, because each mission had a little thought put into it. One of the missions, Spider-Man had lost his web-slinging abilities, making it hard for Pete to get to his objective. Another had him connecting satellite dishes to a thunderstorm. All of the Oscorp stations had their own unique gameplay twist that made them worthwhile, and with the theme of Peter helping people out, it fits Spider-Man's character nicely. What wasn't disappointing were the random crimes that Spider-Man would inevitably run into. What made the crimes great was, each one feels different, ranging from muggings or just to saving people in life-threatening situations, and each one you encounter feels different. As you progress through the story, different factions are introduced with the crimes changing, with each one adding to the variety. Not to mention, once you finish the game, they will still spawn in, so if you're trying to 100% the game, you've got nothing to worry about since there's an infinite spawn. Where I got my enjoyment were the Taskmaster challenges that truly tested my combat and web-slinging skills. By the end of the tasks, I really felt like I had mastered the game. Other than the challenges were the spectrographs and the circuit projects, which are the two puzzles. While they added change to the gameplay, they made it easy in the main story. If you want a challenge, Otto's Lab contains more difficult variants if you want to get everything out of the puzzles. For the diehard Spider-Man fanboys like myself and others, you've got the other Spider-Man suits from the other movies. For me personally, in my opinion, Tobey Maguire is the all-time best Spider-Man actor, with Tom Holland not far behind. Even though I had my favourite Spider-Man suit I used in game, but the main suit that Peter Parker creates is so damn cool. Making the suits even better, some of them have unique abilities tied towards gameplay, but there were a few abilities that were the same that had a different look. Obviously, being a game about Spider-Man, I'll be silly to forget that Peter Parker lives two different lives that he has to switch between. One where he fights crime, and the other part is helping out those close to him in his normal life. Insomniac have created a near-perfect cast of characters, from the villains, the side characters, and to the man himself. There is such an excellent array of characters with their own stories and personalities that I never felt any of them were out of place. Peter Parker was crafted to perfection, and I think Yuri Lowenthal did a phenomenal job voicing Spider-Man. I'm on my third playthrough of the game, and there's one thing I'm noticing. With every voice line from Spider-Man, I could hear joy and excitement from his voice acting. Yuri's voice acting made me believe he wanted this role, which is commendable as hell. What makes Spider-Man's character relatable is how humble he remains despite having cool spider powers. His ability to overcome overwhelming odds even when all seems lost. But one thing I loved was his quick-witty humour, which I couldn't help but laugh. Spider-Man literally fights some of the most terrifying villains and still manages to crack a joke, even in the most awkward times. Most of all, he shows his human side, like every Spider-Man should. After all, Peter has gone through some personal tragedies, which ultimately makes him into the hero that so many people love. Spider-Man is not alone. He is surrounded by great characters who accompany him through his journey. Along with Peter is his aunt, May Parker, who is Pete's only family. Her role within the game is a big role, giving Peter emotional support and with the wisdom that Uncle Ben had also given him. In any form of media about Spider-Man, there needs to be the love interest, and that someone is Mary Jane Watson. Honestly, for the first half of the game, I had trouble relating to her, but it wasn't until the last half of the game that I truly understood what fueled MJ's character. Outside of the main characters is Harry Osborn, who is strangely missing, for reasons I'll get into later. Fortunately, we do get to hear his voice from his voicemails in the research stations, and now we know in Spider-Man 2, Harry will play a big part, so I understand why we were teased with his absence. But where would Spider-Man be without Jonah J. Jameson's never-ending criticisms? While I find it weird there weren't any side missions about him, I enjoyed listening to his funny rants from his radio show. Since I'm a massive fan of the Spider-Man franchise, I have a good knowledge of Spider-Man characters from the main crew to the villains. I bring this up because I had this weird feeling, knowing I would have to fight some of the characters. For example, we know who Norman Osborn is, and the same goes for Dr. Octavius, but that's what I loved about these encounters. They created the excitement for the potential fights in this game or a sequel. So with that out of the way, I think it's time to dive into the main story of Spider-Man, and as a warning, there will be spoilers ahead.
All units, level 4 mobilization. Location, Fisk Tower.
Fisk.
SWAT is 1084 at Fisk Tower. All units stand by. Warrant is en route.
Did you take him down yet?
Obviously the gameplay is crucial, but the highlight of the game was its main story that was gripping from beginning to end, which Insomniac delivered to perfection, and trust me, I don't say that word lightly. While looking for any issues on my third playthrough, I was shocked to find out there was nothing I had a problem with. As I was writing this script, I spent hours trying to find any minute areas within this game's main story, but there isn't any. So I guess my main problems are outside this game's main narrative. The opening cutscene shows us the two different lives that Peter Parker is forced to switch between, and I thought Insomniac did an excellent job how they balanced his story, whether through his Spider-Man duties or his social life. After getting an alert on our phone, we jump out into the most fun tutorial that I've played as a gamer. 99% of tutorials in video games just stick you in slow condescending tutorials that are just too boring, but in Spider-Man you are shown quickly. Adding to the thrill, the song in the background really did the job by creating the excitement. It's weird, after that first level, I had this strong faith that Insomniac would deliver a hell of a story, and it ended up just as I predicted. This game's story is full of funny and cool and adrenaline rush moments. One scene I found funny was a cutscene with Peter getting dressed into his Spider-Man suit in MJ's apartment, only for her to realise Peter was naked for a good couple seconds, making for an awkward funny moment. While we are on the topic of Mary Jane, during the first half of the game I had a problem with her getting angry at Peter for saving her in dangerous situations, but it wasn't until the last half of the story where I truly understood Mary Jane's character. With all the time she was saved by him, Mary Jane had felt useless and wanted to do some helping of her own. With her apology to Pete, at that point I respected her character and any resentment I had towards her completely disappeared. Two of my favourite cool cutscenes were the moments where we crafted the two new Spider-Man suits, one from the cover and the anti-Doc Ock suit. Coincidentally, Otto Octavius had busted Peter just before he was about to build his new suit, but surprisingly, Otto just thinks he makes Spider-Man suits for him, but there was that part of me that told me he knew Peter was Spider-Man. Lo and behold, it ended up being the case. What was revealed to us in the last quarter of the game was the fact that Otto was the main bad guy behind everything. With the realization that his current suit wouldn't be enough, Peter is forced to design another suit to combat Doc Ock, and once again, the art team at Insomniac nailed the suits.
We did the impossible, Doc. But now I have to destroy it. With a little creation of my own.
During the fight with Martin Lee, we are given a cool, clear reference to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2, where we stop the train right after beating Mr. Negative, but in this game, that trick doesn't work. Oddly enough, Peter remarks that that trick worked last time. It's little awesome details like that that make me respect the story writers even more, because it shows they understand the Spider-Man world. Most of all, it was the emotional ending that any piece of Spider-Man media needs to nail, that stays true to the Spider-Man character, and Insomniac did that with flying colours. The finale of this game's main story was perfect, as we see a heartbroken Peter take on Otto, a man who he once considered a father figure, and the voice acting was spot on with Yuri's performance.
Please, think of the man you were! That man is gone. You can't save me, Peter!
Then I guess you'll have to save yourself! You were my hero! You meant so much to me! I hate that you're making me do this! We were going to change the world!
Unfortunately, Peter is forced to make the sad typical hero's choice, and it will definitely tug on the heartstrings for any Spider-Man fans, making the scene more sadder, Aunt May had known Peter was Spider-Man for a while, making Peter Parker's choice more heartbreaking.
What if we use it to cure someone right now?
Then there won't be enough to cure the others. I'll give you a few minutes.
You're gonna be okay, ma'am. I've got the cure right here.
Take off your mask. I want to see my nephew.
You knew?
I've known for a while.
I never wanted you to worry.
I did. And I am so proud of you. And Ben would be too. All the people you've saved.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, you do.
In the end of the game, we see the funeral of Aunt May with a quote that summarized May Parker's personality. In true Marvel fashion, I stayed for the end credits cutscene since I knew we were getting a sequel because of important characters missing. And I'm not done there. There are story DLCs that continue off the main story that are highly worthwhile. Not to mention Miles Morales got his own game that continues off the third DLC, which Insomniac hints at during the main story. To summarize how I feel about Spider-Man's main story, it was the simple but effective emotional story that any Spider-Man or superhero fan would love. At the end of the day, Spider-Man 2018 was a fun game with great addictive gameplay, mastercrafted characters, and most of all, it was the emotional main story that captured the spotlight for me. Despite some small flaws, I can still recommend this to every PlayStation 4 owner even if you're not a fan of the superhero genre. So to end things off, I would like to thank you for watching the video and tell me what you thought of Marvel Spider-Man in the comments below.